And very welcome, everybody. It is Get It episode 2 for 2022. Um, and I'm privileged to have Matthew Burrows with me today. Um,
Hi,
one of
Johan.
the, yes, welcome, Matthew. Um, so, Matthew, we sort of bumped into each other in the ITSMF, I think specifically when, well, maybe 10 years ago now, when we
Yeah,
worked on the credentialing system of the ITSMF.
that's right.
But I suppose a lot of things has happened since then. And I also see different companies and different things that you're involved in. You want to give us a heads up what's happening with you in
Yeah,
your professional life?
sure. I guess for the last 20 years or so, I've been less techy and more focused on people and skills and competencies because yeah, what I found is that no matter how clever we are with the technology, we're still in the people business. It's all about people, the skills and competencies they have, and what they can do with the technology. Design it, build it, keep it running. So no matter how clever we are, it's still about people, and therefore I spend most of my time helping organisations and governments around the world in how to deal with the people and skills related stuff. So that includes, obviously my background in IT service management and project management, but I do a lot of work with SOFIA, the Skills Framework for the Information Age, which is a sort of globally recognized language for describing skills and competencies for technology related specialists.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I suppose I bumped into the SFIA stuff as a member of the British Computer Society,
Mm,
where we've got access to all of that stuff to play with.
mhm.
And it's absolutely awesome. But uh, maybe a little bit underrated in organizations because I don't see a tremendous amount of organizations, especially internationally,
Mhm.
using this wonderful resource to be able to do career planning and think about what people need to know, what they need to be able to do. Oh man, I spent the day speaking Afrikaans, and my English is just atrocious.
Well, actually, it's Sophia's very widely used. We did a quick count. There's about 196 countries around the world where Sophia's
Wow.
used. I think the
Okay.
key thing in your statement is you don't hear a lot about it. That doesn't mean it's not being
Yeah.
used. It's probably that
Possibly.
people are not necessarily talking about the fact they're using it because they just get it, they use it, and it becomes part of how they look after their people and skills. They don't always feel the need to go and talk at conferences about it or write white papers about it because they're onto using it and continuing to get value and addressing the next challenge that they've got.
Okay. Um, Now, I know this is not what we're going to talk about today, but while we're on it, just
Mm,
a little bit of a heads up of what the SFIA Foundation is doing to actually keep this body of knowledge or this
yeah.
resource up to date.
Yeah, so I mean, Sophia's been around for just over 20 years.
Mm.
We've just recently released version 8 of the framework. So, broadly, every 3 years, there's a new major release. And that just really reflects the fact that the technology world is changing. If we'd gone back 10 years ago, would we be talking about analytics, data science? Loads of the skills that are in Sophia just didn't exist or weren't talked about. So that's why we need to keep it up to date. And
Mm.
the SOFIA Foundation is a not-for-profit organization, and it's changed quite a lot, particularly over the last 10 years. We've got representation from pretty much every country you can think of involved in maintaining this framework and updating it. So we always go through
Okay.
an open consultation process. Anybody can input their ideas to new versions of Sophia, and it can be as simple as saying, I don't see that we cover X very well.
Mm.
That might be their only input. And some of us will go off with myself and members of the design authority team or other SOFIA consultants and practitioners out there will go and do some work and find out what's really happening in the world of work. And we'll identify updates that we need to make to the framework. And sometimes that's new skills. Sometimes that's consolidating existing skills. Sometimes it's as simple as renaming a skill because over the recent time it's been known as something else. So it's a really very active community, inputting to it, working on the translations. I think it's 14 languages it's available in now. So, it really is an international effort, reflects the international usage of the framework.
Okay, awesome. Finally, before we step off, SOFIA, can you maybe just tell the audience a little bit about the dimensions that's present in the framework?
Yeah, sure. The easiest way to think about SOFIA is it's just a common language. It's a set of descriptions, and it describes in version 8 121 professional skills. It describes those at up to 7 levels that we have in the framework. So a level 1 skill might be, something you would do straight out of school. Doesn't require any knowledge. You're probably following a well-defined script or procedure. If it doesn't work the way it's expected, you're going to go and seek advice from somebody more experienced. So very much an entry-level skill. And therefore, a lot of skills don't have a level 1 description because they just don't exist. Project management doesn't exist as a skill at level 1. That kicks in at level 4. Yeah. So as you go up the framework in the levels, it's representing people with more experience who are taking on more autonomy and influence and so on, and right them up to level 7, where you might find a lot of the industry leaders, maybe your CEOs and your VPs are tending to practice more skills at level 6 and level 7. Your core practitioners probably more around the 4, 5, and 6. Your entry level probably more around the level 1, 2, and 3. So we've got those 121 skills. And then we've also got another dimension, which is called the generic responsibility attributes. So that is autonomy, influence, complexity, knowledge, and business skills. So they encompass a lot of what people would often refer to as the behavioral factors. Because we all know that, again, if we have a professional skill, just because we've got the knowledge and the ability to practice that technical ability, what we might be lacking is the influencing capability to influence people on how to use it, or the communications capability. So it's not just about professional skills, it's about those behavioral and other responsibility factors. So those 2 main elements, 7 levels, and it's a standard set of descriptions.
Okay, awesome. And a manager can use it to define a job description.
The normal starting point is probably for an individual. If you think about it ourselves as technology professionals, it's a little bit like satellite navigation. Yeah. Your satellite navigation system needs to know where you are now and where you want to go to next in order for it to be able to plot your route or give you a set of optional routes. And it's the same when we look at our careers. As an individual, I need a baseline of where I am now. What skills and competencies do I have? What level do I have them at? So that's where I am now. What skills do I have now? And then I need to maybe compare that with a job description that maybe my manager has written describing the job I'm currently doing. Or it may be an industry profile showing what a SOFIA accredited consultant needs to be doing. And the point is I can compare my skill profile with that role profile or job description. I can do gap analysis. I can then say, okay, what action do I need to take to close that gap? So, if I've got project management at level 4 and I need it at level 5, there's a load of training providers who've mapped their training and certifications to SOFIA. And that mapping would tell me that I need to be on a Prince 2 practitioner course rather than a Prince 2 foundation course, for example. So that's how an individual use it. But you're right, a manager would use it to help that individual, but also to say, everything from I've got a vacancy. What skills am I looking for? So I'm going to specify and recruit against those skills if I haven't got anybody internally. Or to say, I've got a project or a sprint coming up next week, and I need somebody with these 3 skills at this level. Who have we got? As a company, if you've got the skill inventory, a complete inventory of all of the skills you have and who's got them, you can say, great, Johan is the ideal man for this project because he's got the 3 skills we need at the right level. He's based in the right location. He's available next week. Let's ask him to do the work. And of course, you can use it at all sorts of other levels, executive level, to say, where are my key people and skills related risks in my organization? Yeah. All sorts of questions you can answer just with that basic data. What skills do I have? What skills do I need?
Yeah, it's an awesome resource, I must admit.
Yeah.
I just wish more people will use it. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. It's marketing, isn't it? When you get a not-for-profit organization, not-for-profit, most people use SOFIA free. That means there's not a load of money for marketing. So if you haven't heard about it, you don't know about it, and you're missing out on something that could really help you.
So just for the audience, to say, if you're looking for SOFIA, it's like a fish without an eye.
SFIA, SOFIA. And the SOFIA Foundation website is sophia-online.org. But if you search for SOFIA or Skills Framework for the Information Age, you'll find it. And people can always contact me. I can point them in the right direction.
Awesome. Okay, so that's your involvement with the SOFIA Foundation, which is a not-for-profit. Yeah. But then I also see, I'm used to the BSM Impact email, but now all of a sudden I see what's at SkillsTX.
Yeah.
So what's happening?
Yeah. So as BSM Impact, I started that in 1998. We've been delivering a lot of consultancy projects, a lot of ISO 20000, a lot of ITIL, a lot of service management, lots of SOFIA. And we, a few years ago, we created a tool, and initially that tool was to support us in our project work that we did with customers. And it was a SOFIA-based tool to help them with assessment, building role profiles, doing all of that stuff. So as BSM Impact, we used that tool. And then what we found actually is that our customers said, actually, we want to continue using that tool after the initial project, because we can see that actually our skills change and our skill requirements change, and we need to keep it up to date. So what it started off as an internal tool turned into a customer facing tool, and we needed a name for it. So we called it SkillsTX. Okay. And that's where the SkillsTX branding comes from. So yes, if you look at the company name for our operating company in the US, it's BSM Impact Inc. UK, BSM Impact Limited. Yeah, we've got organization Australia as well, and my colleagues over there manage the SkillsTX platform. So it's really it's the name of the tool, the name of our brand, if you like, the SkillsTX. Okay. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so I caught up with the missing 12 years.
Yeah. What else have we been doing? Getting older, I think, Johan. That's all we've been doing apart from that.
Isn't that terrible, hey? Last night I woke up with a cramp, and this morning I couldn't walk. Now, just imagine you get an injury while you're sleeping when you get old.
It's dangerous being old, isn't it?
Oh, man. Okay, so to the topic.
Yeah.
The great quit or the great resignation.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of context behind that, and then we can delve into it and maybe ask some questions about why and what the impact of that is.
So where I'll start, I guess we've got to think about the shape of the IT industry over the last 20 years, because it's actually changed quite a lot. Yeah. 20 years ago, if you worked in an IT department, you had a few systems that you looked after, but they were probably regularly down. And if they went down, everybody had a manual workaround They could go back to paper and pen. They could, use something else until the system was back up again. And it was mostly back office support systems. It didn't matter quite so much. But these were in the days when you and I, to listen to music, we would have to go to a record shop and buy a piece of vinyl. If we wanted to do banking, we would have to go to the bank branch and use paper checks and do everything in branch. And guess what? The world's moved on. This digital revolution has happened. And now all of the technology, all of a sudden, rather than being optional and back office, is right at the front. Everybody's using it. If it doesn't work, there's no manual workaround most of the time. You just can't do what you want to do. It's in pretty much every organization and every industry. We are completely dependent on the technology. So what that does for the technology professional is, first of all, it means we need more of them because we're using a lot more technology and we're doing cleverer stuff with it. So we've had a situation where the number of people with these technology, digital, cybersecurity, all of those types of technology related skills has increased and is continuing to increase. But we've also had a bit of a maturing. The way we do things needs to sort of sometimes be standardized. So we've got lots of certifications going on. We've got lots of new technologies always coming along. So the landscape is changing. I heard a stat from Gartner the other week that said actually the skill requirements of a job change at least 10% each year. So actually the job you were doing last year is quite different this year. And that's just the skill requirements. So you can't any longer just qualify for a role and live on that for the rest of your life. You've got to actually continue to evolve. So you've got, great demand, great dependency on the technology. It's always needed now. And then most companies are reporting that they've got a skills shortage. So if there's not a big pool of people available that when you have a vacancy, you can go and recruit, well, what does that do? It creates more demand. It actually gives people looking for work more opportunity because they've got jobs that they can choose from. There's a skills shortage. So suddenly as technology professionals, we're in demand. We've got more opportunity. And therefore, if we're not happy where we are, we've got the chance to go somewhere else. And I think that's what we're seeing is actually that people, if they're not entirely happy, they leave. And I've seen surveys that show, there was one in the US a couple of months ago that showed there were, I think it was last July, there were 4 million people quit their jobs just in the US in July, in 1 month. And that's against a background of there were 10.9 million open positions at the same time.
Okay.
So that's a general stat, not technology specific.
Yes.
But when you then take it down to technology being understaffed, skill shortage, then it magnifies that. So we've got a situation where all of these people have got this opportunity. Some of them will leave, and because there's not a big pool of people, if they leave, we can't just simply go and recruit quite often. So as employers, what do we need to do? And that's the key thing, is that actually, because we can't always recruit, we need to work harder to hold on to the good people that we have. We also need to be able to attract new people. So we need to be an attractive employer. And so in order to really do that, we have to understand why people leave our organization. Because if we understand why they leave, we can do something about that and turn it into a reason to stay. And when you look at the various reports around on why people leave, you get several reasons. A lot of people think it's about salary. And what the stats show, when they ask people why they left, salary comes, 5, 6, 7 items down the list. It's not usually the top item. Do you know what the top item is, Johan?
trust or freedom to do something, I suppose.
That's up there, but you know the top item is actually lack of career development opportunities. So it's
Oh, yeah,
about their
that's
career
interesting.
development. Yeah, that's the number one highest scoring item in several of the surveys I've seen. And do you know what, that in the one from the Work Institute, that reason's been the number one reason for the last 10 years.
Wow.
You know, the next ones are things like work-life balance, how you get on with your manager, do you like the job, you know, what does it do for your family relationships, are you working too hard? And then it's about rewards, your total rewards, your relocation, retirement benefits, environment, all of those things. But way out in the lead is that lack of career development opportunities. And I guess to make it a little bit more nuanced, what do we mean by career development? It's not just about going on training courses, because you know, some people say, well, I need training in the latest technology or the latest methodology or whatever. That's part of it, but most training courses just give you knowledge. So great, I go on a training course, and you were talking to Paul Wilkinson about this. He touched upon this in your last episode, and Paul and I have spoken about this and written blogs about it. But most of our industry is dependent on these certificates that only show you've got knowledge. Now, if you never get the opportunity to put that knowledge into practice in a working environment, you don't develop the skill, you don't become proficient,
Yes.
and you don't get the opportunity to turn it into a professional competency. It's a little bit like an airline pilot. If you said to him, well, you'll be happy if we just give you the manual and you can read the manual on how to fly the plane. Well, he's not going to be happy. He wants actually the chance to fly the plane and fly new planes and, you know, up his experience. And it's the same for us in technology. So career development is partly training, but it's also the opportunity to do two things: maintain the current skills that we've got. So have I got a chance to practice it and keep it up to date?
Yes.
And have I got the chance to actually develop new skills and competencies that are maybe in the direction I want to travel, or keeping up with the industry, or whatever it might be?
Yeah. Do you know what's interesting? When I used to train ITIL, and I don't anymore, quite often, you know, a candidate would come to me after the course and say, this is awesome. I've really learned some cool stuff. Just a pity that I'll never be able to use it in my job.
Yeah. It's sad, isn't it?
And isn't it
I've
sad,
heard it
hey?
so many times. Yeah.
But
And the company's wasted money. They've wasted money on a course for somebody to learn, and they're never going to put it into practice. So the company will never get any benefit from it. The individual will be fed up because they're itching to get using it, you know, and they're not got the opportunity. It's crazy. Why do we do it?
Yeah. Do you know, I'm actually not surprised about the remuneration and pay thing. Yeah. Because I mean, remember Hertzberg talked about hygiene factors and motivators.
Yeah.
And I always used to say to my employees, giving you more money is not going to make you happy, because Hertzberg proved that it's a hygiene factor.
Well, I did see something yesterday that was saying that, you know, actually just the manager going and buying one of the team a coffee meant that actually that team member turned down an opportunity that was several tens of thousands more in salary.
That was a post that I did from Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah, that's where I saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. And Gary Vaynerchuk said that as managers, we need to become more sticky, that people stick around.
Absolutely right.
And I think in that scenario, it was a little bit more than a cup of coffee. It took something to a ball game. Yeah. But still, I mean, the ball game was 4 or 5 years ago, and still the person don't want to go. You know, so I think that people need, you know, we as leadership and management of organizations need to realize that people's personal, the people well-being, is such an important factor in determining whether you are fulfilled in your job, and what makes you happy. You do stuff that you like.
Yeah.
You
But,
challenged, but you're not overstretched.
yeah.
And there is a measure of work-life balance.
But people also want to be recognized for who they are and the talents that they have.
Yes,
And
that's also true.
sometimes I find employers think of people as their job. Oh yeah,
Mm.
Fred, he's a project manager, and when it comes to the one-to-one meetings with them about development planning, they'll get the job description and they'll say, right, I've got the job description for a project manager. I know exactly what skills and competencies they need and what training they need to go on. Let's think about which bits of this are missing. Now, they miss the fact that actually that person they're talking to probably used to be a business analyst. They probably do other things as well. They've got some other skills that they want to practice, they want to keep up to date. So actually, isn't it, if your manager said to you, actually, let's forget the job description for the moment. I'm interested in you as a person. What's your background?
Yeah.
What do you do? What's the whole picture of your skills and competencies that you have? Not just the subset of skills you're using in your current role, but the big picture. I'm taking an interest in you in a person. And do you know what? But that's good for the organization, because I spoke to a CIO a while ago who said to me, I'm really struggling with the quality management area in my organization. I've got to do something about it, and I don't have anybody with any experience. And I was able to say to him, yes, you do. You've got somebody, and she was the quality manager in her last role 2 years ago. And I only knew that because we had done a SOFIA skills assessment for that organization, and we had asked the people about all of their skills, got complete picture of the skill profile, not just the subset in their current job. And
Yeah.
and even if you're not going to redeploy that person to a different role, that CIO could go and ask that lady, this is what I'm thinking about doing in the quality management area. You're experienced in quality management. Could you just spend 5 minutes looking at it and tell me what I've got wrong? She felt valued. The company was getting value from her experience, even though it was nothing to do with the job that she was employed to do at that time.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, we're not one-dimensional beings. We're
No.
very complex. And quite honestly, if you're like me, I suffer from attention deficit. So it's really, really difficult to concentrate on something for very long.
Yeah, I think we get more intolerant as we get older as well, though, Johan.
That is true.
Wilkinson will talk about the pointy finger.
Yeah. Okay. So if you were to give 5 points of advice to a manager or an executive, in 2 areas, so that's 10 in total. How do you keep your people? Number 1.
Yep.
And how do you get good people? Number 2.
Yeah.
What would those 2 sets of 5 points be?
Yeah. So how you keep good people is, first of all, just take a genuine interest in their skills and experience and not just their current job. So treat them as a person with a background, with experience, and that you're interested in them. So baseline what their current skills and competencies are, the whole of the picture. Yeah. Confirm the skills they have. So forget about what you're going to use at the moment, what you need. Just get a good baseline. It's a bit like, you do with the CMDB. You need to know what state things are in now. Yeah. So it's a baseline. Every journey starts from there. So find out their skills, then have a good conversation about what direction do they want to go in. What do you need them to do as a manager that's really important for the organization? Why is it important? How is it going to help them? Work out where the frustrations might be, so that you may need to have an honest conversation with them about, actually, I see you've got 2 or 3 skills that we're not at the moment giving you the opportunity to practice. And maybe we haven't got the opportunity, but you're recognizing they've got the skills. You're having an honest conversation saying, well, actually, I can see where we could maybe help you to keep that one up to date by giving you this extra responsibility, or you could help us on this project. But these two are a bit of a problem. At least you're talking about it. So honest conversation, genuine interest in their background, see where the alignment is between what the company needs and what they need as an individual. Have an honest conversation where they might be in a different direction and compromise. And then, what can we do to support you being better at your current role so that you're more fulfilled, you're happier? What's the next stage for you? So start thinking about their career development, but doing that from a clarity perspective. So the individual knows where they are, they know what they need to do to be successful, and they know what actions you've agreed between the two of you are going to be in their action plan for getting them to that next stage in their journey. So that's how you keep them.
Okay. Before you go
how
on,
do you
let me
attract
just
them?
quickly interject here.
Yeah, go on.
I'm so bad at looking at the comments in the streams coming in from live users. So let me first just acknowledge that I see you. There's a question. I'm looking for a change, and I'm an ITIL practitioner, and so I am intermediate. Okay,
Yep.
we need a little bit more context, and we can maybe get back to you. Okay, anonymous Facebook user. I'm glad that you become more tolerant as you become older. Definitely not me, and I think it seems like not Matthew either.
No.
And then there's a statement here. HP said never hire somebody for the job, hire them for their fit to the company. So that's an interesting thing. This
one.
issue of culture, yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of discussion about culture actually, because there's some people come out with an alternative to that, saying actually if you only hire people that fit the culture, you don't get people that will challenge the status quo and move you on more. So actually you may need to go for a bit of a balance between people that are going to push the envelope a little bit. Sometimes that's where the innovation comes from. So two schools of thought there, and it's probably the real answer is it needs a bit of a mix. But certainly, you don't necessarily hire someone just for the job. It's more than that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the key here is that if Peter Brooks says that he doesn't mean to be anonymous. He just is.
I'd never describe Peter Brooks as anonymous.
As anonymous, no.
Good old Peter. Glad you're watching.
I think that the issue is that if you hire, you must hire for somebody who can adhere to the principles of the organization. But
yeah.
So maybe a principle fit rather than because diversity is paramount. I mean, that's how new ideas are born. Yeah.
Agreed. And also you also need to think about the job to an extent, because if you put someone in a position where they've got no chance of being successful in that role, you're probably not doing the right thing for them, and you're not doing the right thing for the organization. But equally, most people in their current job you wouldn't expect them to be a 100% perfect fit for the skills of that role. Otherwise, where's their development headroom? Where's their opportunity to grow?
Absolutely.
So they need to have enough to be able to be successful, but not enough that they're going to be bored. If they're getting to that point where they're 100% matching everything, they should be thinking about their next step.
Yeah, cool. Hello, Louis. Okay, Peter says diversity must include neurodiversity. Different ways of thinking. Yeah, that's very true. Okay, let's get back to the second list of 5. I rudely interrupted.
Yeah, the other scenario game is, how do we attract the right people?
Yeah.
So the best thing to do is, first of all, be really clear about what we're looking for. And the number of job descriptions and role profiles that I've seen that just don't talk about what the role's about. And again, this is where, going back to SOFIA, this is where SOFIA can help, because if you use SOFIA to define the job description and it says in this role, you will be practicing incident management at levels 4 and 5, change management at level 3, project management level 4, whatever it is, that's a clear, agreed definition. You know what that means. So you're being more specific about what skills and competencies are needed. That is then going to attract people with those skills and competencies. So you're more likely to attract the right people based on whether they have the right skills and competencies. Then follow that through your recruitment process. So when you speak to them, if they send their CV or resume, you're looking for evidence that they're matching the core things that you need. Maybe some of your skills are absolutely essential. If people don't have them, they're not going to stand any chance of being successful. Maybe some of them are just desirable and they could do well even if they didn't have them. So maybe split your skills into required and desirable. Make sure they tick all the essential boxes. And then if you're in the fortunate position of having 10 people that all have the required skills, start looking at the desirable ones and use that to help with the decision. And then, don't just ask them for their training certificates. What knowledge do you have? Talk to them about their experience, because when through the recruitment interview, you want to get their insights. When you do this, what do you find? How do you approach this problem? Because that means you're getting away from people with just a theoretical understanding who've never put it into practice, and you're actually engaging them for their experience. They'll be a lot more bought in. You'll get a better recruit, and then carry that through. Once you find the right person, you hire them. Don't let that be the end of it. You've got a baseline for their skill profile. What's their development plan to get even better at the current role, to morph into what they need to do next?
I warned you ADHD, eh? So I saw a squirrel. Tell me a little bit about what do you think about these online systems that people apply through lately, and their inability to do just what you explained now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I must say that a lot of the blame has to be with the company that's got the vacancy at the beginning. If you don't give people the opportunity through the process to actually talk about their experience, then you're never going to find out about it. And then what data are you using to make your decision on whether to hire them? It's crazy. And so if the recruitment platform doesn't capture the right information, which is what skills, competencies you have, what experience do you have, then you've got to look at your process. You've got to look at your systems and change it. But I know it's challenging because, when you get a situation where maybe you've got a vacancy and you've got 200 people that have applied for it, sometimes you need a way of filtering those down so you've got a manageable number. And I know people are very tempted to use these things, but in my experience, most of them do silly things like keyword searches. So if you've used the wrong spelling of the word program, even though you've got the experience, you're not going to come up in the results, or if you've just used slightly different terminology. So I think they're limited, and really, well, what somebody once said, the only way to work out whether someone can do a job is to give them the job
to do.
That's not practical either, but all you're trying to do is de-risk it slightly by saying, have they got suitable experience?
I like the fact that you talked about having this conversation and saying, in a scenario like this, what would you do? And if they've got experience, they can say it's because of experience. But one of the comments now is you must be careful of experience, because you might discriminate against against somebody with less experience. But then again, you also shouldn't use cameras with an interview, because you'll discriminate against old people.
Yeah. I mean, there are rules and there are things that you can learn on how to do it. I mean, we've got an assessor training course where we teach you about the different types of questions. open. Some of it's as simple as open versus closed questions.
Yes.
Do
Yeah.
you manage projects is going to get a yes or a no answer, whereas it's what was the last project you managed? How big was it? How long did it last? How did you deal with stakeholders' requirements and reporting? What
Yeah.
challenges did you have when you were dealing with risks and issues? Just the way you ask is going to get a much better response, and that's something you can learn if you don't know how to do it.
So one of my areas of focus lately is this issue of innovation, and one of the tools and techniques that we use as jobs to be done. And I've learned an awesome technique, and I can't even remember where I learned it from. You start a conversation and you let the person finish your sentence.
Yeah.
And I've never thought of that, but it works brilliantly. Yeah. Because people just cannot handle silences. They want to fill that silence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's have a quick look. Okay. Open stuff. I found CV rejected many times. Yeah, ageism is maybe an issue. Yeah, the way that it's screened is maybe an issue. But let me ask you this question: in terms of the Great Quit, what influence do you think COVID has had on that? The fact that people actually now realize that they can quite happily be productive at home, and their company wants them to come back now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have got very comfortable with working at home, but I do think there's a mix. There are some people that are being much more productive because they're not spending time traveling. But it depends on the individual, because some of the people that actually spend an hour or so commuting to work use that hour to get themselves into the right frame of mind. So again, it's down to personality. Some people thrive working on their own. Some people feel better with the work-life balance because they're not spending loads of time traveling. Other people are really suffering because they're not getting the interaction with other people. So again, you're going to get some people who, when they're being told they've got to go back to the office, are going to say, "Oh, do I really have to? I don't want to." And they might use that as a reason for looking for a different job that allow them to stay at home all the time. But you're equally going to get some people who just are really suffering from lack of interaction. The online technology is good, but it's still a compromise, isn't it?
Can't drink a beer with somebody.
Difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. I must admit, I've seen several surveys now, and it seems like the average employee says they want to go back to the office 2 days in a week.
Yeah. Yeah. I have seen a few people that I'm convinced are doing half the work that they should be doing when they're working remotely. You're always going to get some of those, and I think it's really about identifying how do you measure their contribution.
Yes.
Because the old way of people clocking in and clocking out and you measuring it by the number of hours they do is just really quite old fashioned, isn't it? Because if somebody's appropriately motivated, they might be able to achieve in an hour what somebody else just wastes the whole day doing. So time is not really very good. But maybe it's back to our principles about from service management, Johan, where we're thinking about the outcome. What's the outcome? What's the objective you're trying to achieve? And actually, the way of measuring value is, have you managed to achieve that outcome, or have you got some way towards it, rather than, I saw you took 3 hours for lunch the other day, or you were only online for, X amount of time. Yeah. So we've got to get cleverer at actually understanding what makes people tick, how best they work, how to motivate them, and be able to set good targets and drive the right behavior.
What's interesting for me is that in the Netherlands specifically, the tendency of people to become self-employed contractors,
Yeah.
zelfstandige personen. Yeah?
The gig economy.
The gig, and the Netherlands is actually quite big on the gig economy.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how that operates. You get paid for what you do.
Yeah.
And if you can do it in 2 minutes, where somebody else takes an hour, well, good luck.
Yeah.
That's the benefit of experience, isn't it?
It is, but it's the same thing with, some people just do not like working for themselves and running their own businesses. They want to work for somebody else. They want predictable hours. They want predictable activity. So recognize those people for the way they work best and mold what you need them to do around that. You'll get the most productivity out of them. It's just like some people are very comfortable doing the job they do at the moment. They do it really well, and they've got no desire to develop a new skill or to take on a different role. They just want to do what they do and do it well and be left alone. So
Yeah, but
recognize that.
there's a risk in that. I mean, you yourself said that the job changes at least 10% every year. And if you ask somebody like Tom Peters, he would say 30% a year.
Yeah.
So he reckons if you haven't reskilled yourself completely within a 3.5 year period, you're actually unemployable.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
think
that's
in a lot of
that's
roles that's right. I think it's part of practicing your core skills is that you'll always learn new stuff. You and I have been doing it for a long time. I don't know about you, but I learn new things every day. I find better ways of doing things. I find mistakes that I've made. You've got to be open to that. That's continual improvement. And as an individual, you have to have that. And sometimes that's developing new skills, tweaking the way you do things.
Yeah. I think it was Richard Branson that said that if somebody offers you a job that you're scared of doing, take it. That's how you learn.
Yeah, that's what I did with presenting in the first place. I went on a course years ago, presenting for project managers, and I went. It was just a one evening event, I think it was. And the reason I went is because I didn't think I was very good at presenting, and I realized that I probably needed to develop that skill, and I was uncomfortable. But the best bit of advice the speaker gave was the way to get better at presenting is to accept more invitations to present.
Absolutely.
It is the only way, and I'm not the most comfortable at doing it. But it's a skill you have to develop in some roles.
Yeah, I must admit. I mean, because I'm obviously not a native speaker, I've always had this hang up that people's going to hear all the grammar mistakes that I make. They don't. Yeah, maybe one or two grammar police in the audience that would, but what the hell, stuff them. Yeah, it's tons of other people who actually loves the fact that you can clearly communicate and you can share with your experiences with them, and it's more of a conversation than a presentation.
Yes.
So I a long time ago, I joined Toastmasters, but I lost it, I think, for about three meetings, and I said, no, really, I'm going to do exactly what you said you must do. Yeah. Just get on stage more.
You do, and I think knowing your stuff is the other key thing. You've got to, if you're trying to present on something you really don't know about. My first ITSMF conference, I was quite nervous, but I put a presentation forward for submission. It was about service catalogs, and I thought, I think I've got some stuff I can share with people that will help it make it easier for them to do the service catalogs. And I noticed there was another speaker on the program as well that was also talking about service catalogs. And I went to their presentation, and they had only implemented one service catalog.
Sure.
And their experience doing it once, they were putting forward as a methodology for doing it every time. And I'd only done about 300 service catalogs at the time, and that was the point when I felt comfortable that I had enough information to share some common stuff. And I felt nervous about that, but everything I was being told by this other presenter, I could think of lots of examples where it wouldn't work that way. And then to make it even worse, at the end of the session, somebody asked, "Oh, how far have you got?" And they were only partway through that project. They hadn't fully implemented that one that they were talking about. So,
Sure.
yeah, bit of caution. You've really got to know your stuff.
Yeah. And yeah, but yeah, this brings us back to this issue of knowing your stuff is more than just the theory.
Yes,
It's the
exactly.
ability to do to do things, and for your employer to create opportunities for you to do things that you would like to learn and that you want to build competency in.
And sometimes adding that extra safety mechanism in there. So if you know that one of your people's been on the training course and you need to give them the opportunity to put it into practice, then ask yourself what the risk is. If it's a highly risky thing, then maybe you want them to shadow somebody else while they do it first, or do it but with somebody that's experienced, providing them some coaching and mentoring while they do it. Other tasks are safer. You can let them get on with it. It doesn't matter if they make a mistake, but it's about being appropriate for the task you're asking them to do. So somebody at a presentation once said, well, it's all about attitude and nothing about experience. And I did say, well, what are you going to let the enthusiastic bass guitarist loose with a scalpel to do your brain surgery? You're not. Yeah, it's too risky. Yeah.
And,
So it depends
but not
on
only
the
that,
task.
Somebody in the audience is actually going to recognize that you're an idiot, and you don't know what you're talking about. And that's like a cancer in an audience. But there was something else that I wanted to ask you, and now for the life of me, I can't remember. That's the problem with having, not having blinkers on and seeing squirrels all over. So just out of interest sake, my pet, my little daughter, is an English pointer. Her personality and mine, perfect.
Yeah.
Squirrel.
Perfect. Yeah, I've got a Labrador, and she matches me because Labradors just love their food and will just eat, and I'm the same. So I think sometimes your pets do mirror your personality sometimes.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to rewind a little bit. We were talking about, it was something about skills and competencies, and for the life of me, I can't remember now. Okay, did we go through the list of 5 things that people need to do to get new skills?
I think there's probably one other area we didn't cover on that, and it's maybe I guess we've looked at it. If we look at it from an individual point of view, and then a manager and an organization point of view, they're slightly different. Yeah, the individual, I would say, and I think one of the people that posted a comment in here said, asked for a bit of advice. I'm looking for a change. I'm an ITIL practitioner and SIAM intermediate. So for an individual, I would recommend go and do an online SOFIA assessment. So you've got a SOFIA based version of your CV. Yeah, you know what your skills are in industry standard terms. You can do that if you go to skillstx.com, there's a free assessment for individuals. They can go and do it free.
Okay,
It will take you 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour if you like to take longer over these things. Baseline your skills. You'll also see on there loads of industry standard profiles that you can compare yourself against. So you could say, okay, what are the skills for a change manager? I fancy being a change manager. oh yes, I've got some of them, I've got gaps here. You can start comparing. So own your own skill profile, because that's the reality. When you leave work at the end of the day, you take your skills with you. If you leave an organization, that organization no longer has your skills, right? You own your skills. So take some ownership, profile yourself, look at the gaps, have your own development action plan, irrespective of whether your organization is helping you to do that or not.
Yes.
Then always have something in your development plan, even if the action is just do more of this thing. Maybe I don't need a training course. Maybe I just need the opportunity to do this in a project or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Um,
So
as an
that might,
organization, though, sorry, Johan, carry on.
sorry. So, and that might mean that next time the opportunity comes around, you put your hand up.
Yep, absolutely right.
And I get so irritated when people just want things to fall in their laps.
Yeah.
So,
You have
sorry.
to identify the task and then go for it. You know, if you are working for an employer, then talk to your manager. If you hear the opportunity, I'd really like to do these 3 things. Yeah. But if you look at it from an organizational perspective, so look at a manager's perspective, the first thing, if you're looking at 5 things to do, 1, do an assessment of your organization, baseline, create a skill inventory, because if you don't know what skills you have, you can't look at the gaps. Your training budget is probably being spent badly. You're doing all the wrong training. You're doing all the wrong development activities. You're missing skills that people already have and hiring them in when you don't need to. So find out where you are first. So baseline, create your skill inventory, which is actually each person doing a skill profile. Then you've got an answer to the what skills we have. You know, use that framework, use the SOFIA framework, because that way you're not using language that only makes sense in your organization. It's a common language for the industry. So use the framework, answer the what skills do we have question, then start looking at what skills you need, which might be updating those job descriptions that have sat in a folder somewhere for the last 10 years and never been updated. And as we say, 10, did you say 30% change on some jobs? 10% on others? Yeah. So if they're 10 years out of date, which a lot of organizations are, that job description will be completely useless. So go and update them so they represent what skills you need now and into the future. If you're working in an agile environment, start defining the skills you need for a task in a sprint. By what are the 3 key skills that I need somebody to have in order to do this task? Again, using SOFIA. Do the gap analysis so that people know where they are, know what they need to do, have a decent action plan. So skills gap analysis at individual level, team level, department level, whole organization level, and then put that into action plans, career development action plans for individuals, team development plans, whatever it might be. Actually put the actions down and do the actions. So those are the 5 things: framework, what skills we have, what skills we need, gap analysis, development action plans.
Okay, awesome. Now, there's just another thing is, if your employer is not helping you with that, there are tons of places to actually build skill and competency. So if you, for instance, join an organization like the IT Service Management Forum, there's a mentoring program, or the British Computer Society. There's a mentoring.
What you'll also find is that ITSMF UK, for example, they have just mapped all of their masterclasses to SOFIA. So you can, by knowing which skill you're aiming to do, you can see which masterclasses are suitable for you. I know conference providers are doing the same thing. Mentoring schemes, you can use SOFIA to match mentors with mentees, because the mentee, what skill do I want to focus on? I need a mentor that knows about that skill at that level. It's really simple. So there are lots of things you can do. Self-study, events, professional memberships, training, development, shadowing, volunteer work, all sorts of things that you can do to actually develop your skills if your employer's not helping you.
I just remembered I can't remember the question, but I remember what it was about. I miss the days of apprenticeships.
Yes.
I spent the first 3 months of my life carrying my senior tech's case.
Yeah.
And my job was to hand him stuff and to observe. And there's a hell of a lot of value in that.
The good
that
news
ability
is there are some new ones. There's apprenticeships are becoming a lot more popular in a number of countries. And I know of a couple of apprenticeship schemes that have just mapped everything to SOFIA. So again, they can be much more aligned. I'm also seeing a change in degree courses where they're starting to focus not just on the knowledge, but on the putting it into practice, sometimes in a simulated environment. So they're starting to think skills and competencies, not just knowledge. So there's actually some good encouraging signs. We just need to support those things.
Yeah, and they you're quite right. They are very forward-thinking universities. I mean, Wayne, I did a MBA nearly 20 years ago. Yeah, and even then, I can remember that we had 3 simulations as part of the course.
Yeah,
and the roughest one of the lot was a whole weekend. We started Friday morning. And it ran until the Sunday afternoon. We slept there, and you were put into groups. You had to start a company, prepare it for a listing, and constantly, all the stuff that you did were fed into a computer, and then there were facilitators that just made your life a total misery. But what a learning experience, in just being able to go through something like that. So yes, it seems like we're a minute over an hour, and I've promised my audience that I'll try and stick to 1 hour. The first episode with David Cannon, I think, was 2 hours and 30 minutes.
That's easy with David. He's got so much knowledge and experience.
So but I don't think people has got the patience to suffer through that. So, Matthew, final words.
Yeah, my final word is, if you're a professional, you've got to take ownership. Don't wait for it to happen. A couple of the comments in the comments field say exactly that, right? You have to go and seek more opportunities. You have to go and work out what you need. Don't expect someone to do it for you. And my message to the organizations is recognize people are people with different experience. Even if they got the same job title, they will have completely different experience and some different skills as well. So start recognizing people as people with all of their good and bad points, the skills and experience they have, and work out what makes them tick, help them to function to the best of their ability. And you'll get more out of them. That'll help the organization. That'll help the individuals as well.
Yeah, and coming back to that thing of showing a genuine interest in people's well-being as a total being. That would make your environment more sticky, and they'll stick around.
They will.
Okay, Matthew, thank you very much. It was absolutely awesome to have a chat. I'm gonna just run the closing slides. And if you want to contact Matthew to ask questions or more information about what they're doing or whatever, I've realized that I've never had a closing slide, but now I do. Stay well and stay safe.
Thanks, Johan.
And I must get a little bit of self-promotion in also. Stay well, everybody. I can find my cursor.